Hi, everyone. Welcome to Joseph's Fireside Chat Series. I am Tom Dreyfus, CEO and co-founder of Joseph. Very fortunate to be joined today by Nick Mann, the founder of Polaris Lawyers. Welcome, Nick. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Tom. It's always a pleasure to chat.
You got that the right way around. I was about to say thank you for having me, but in fact, I am hosting you today.
Delighted to be happy to host next time.
Excellent. Can't wait. Nick, tell us a little bit about yourself, about Polaris Lawyers, and with your crystal ball, why I have invited you here today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting the crystal ball out. So I'm almost 20 years a lawyer now. Now based in Victoria, although I've practiced in a few different Australian states and territories, and for a short time in Samoa. Over the course of almost 20 years, I've been a personal injury lawyer from sort of moment one. And part of the reason for that is that I'm fascinated by the sad and strange, weird, wonderful stories that people have following a major life event and looking at what we can do to solve problems for ordinary people. That's what fascinates me about personal injury law. And so for the last 8 years, I've had the pleasure and privilege of running my own boutique personal injury firm in Melbourne called Polaris Lawyers. And it's grown from me in a very small office with a very large photocopier to now having 30 of us in a much larger office, the same size photocopier. But yeah, we've got a whole team around us who are really experts in personal injury, so helping people who are injured in Victoria. And that is the sum total of what we do. So we don't dabble outside that at all, and we get to have the trust of injured clients, representing them, speaking to them, and advising them every day, which is something pretty special.
It is pretty special, and I think one of the most special things about your story is in what is quite a concentrated market in Australia for plaintiff or personal injury law. Polaris has managed to carve out a position for itself as one of the leaders, certainly when it comes to innovation, to branding, to putting itself out there and doing things a little bit differently. Was that always the plan? Did you start the firm and think, I'm going to be different?
Yes, I'd spent a lot of years at a large personal injury firm and learned a lot about the practice of law in that time, but had probably reached a point where I was looking forward to having a blank page and getting really excited about how personal injury might be practiced in a more client-centric way. That's an easy thing to talk about. Delivering client-centric practice in personal injury law is something which is a challenge initially and is a constant challenge. Right? We've never perfected client centricity in terms of the way that we practice. But I was excited about the opportunity to do something different, to approach things differently, and to try and continue to get great outcomes, but perhaps focus on the experience of the clients along the journey. And I think, in anticipating what we might be talking about today a little bit, it was around the time that I opened Polaris that you and I had our first conversation. We heard, and the timing of that was impeccable, because to me, there are so many opportunities within the legal space, particularly when we think about lay clients, people who've never come to a lawyer, who are intimidated by the lawyers and the law. There is so much low-hanging fruit there that we can harvest to close the knowledge gap. And some of that is about being more approachable, being humans first and lawyers second. Not all of that is high-tech. Some of that is going back to basics from a human to human level. but there are also so many exciting opportunities to inform and better engage our clients using AI and using tech. And I still think very fondly back to that first conversation that we had when Joseph was starting up, to think about the possibilities and how those opportunities might be expanded and grown using tech.
Your firm has done an extraordinary amount of work with technology with Joseph, from some of the earliest automation tools that you built based on decision trees, workflow automation, working out whether people were eligible to bring claims, to some of the more recent tools that you've built using Josef Q, our generative AI platform. I'd like to focus on Josef Q today, and on some of that work that you've been doing with AI. What was the driving force behind your decision to lean into generative AI and its opportunities in legal practice?
So one of the long-held frustrations that I have about personal injury law is that there are access to justice and knowledge gaps within the community and even within the legal community that are filled with guesses and dabblers and pieces of half-truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so about 40% of people who suffer a personal injury never go on to engage legal representation. And I suspect some of that is because they've been told by their neighbour, a friend, or someone down their local shops that they don't have a claim. And we've experienced that firsthand. We got over $1 million in compensation for someone who'd been told by their nurse that there was no claim. And so the most recent iteration of that, came along with ChatGPT and looking at websites, trying to get information off the internet as if I was a client who'd never experienced the law, and seeing some really ordinary answers. I also spent a bit of time, teaching at the university. I would fail students if they gave me the kind of answer that I was getting, even from competitors' websites. And so I became really concerned about not only the continuation, but this amplification of false quasi-legal advice that might, in the end, impact whether someone engages with the legal process and goes on to obtain compensation and just gets access to justice. And so Josef Q has been, again, really timely. You always seem to be in the right spot at the right time, because I think that there's so much that we've been able to do in building closed circuit AI tools that we know are going to deliver a really high quality answer to clients that aren't just scratching around in all four corners of the internet, where everyone has offers an opinion, and moving away from that and saying, what kind of answer would I like to overhear if I'm sitting next to my associate lawyer?
Yep.
When they're speaking to a client, what would I be happy? And we can teach it, we can improve it to a really high standard. And I think that is a high standard, to say, can it give the kind of guidance that I would want to hear coming out of Polaris? So I'm sure I'm not alone here, Tom. I think most lawyers are control freaks to a greater or lesser extent. And for us as a boutique firm, quality control is so important that it matters enough to us that we'll go in and moderate the answers and think about what occurs if the answer that either one of our lawyers or a piece of tech or a brochure, the full gamut, which isn't 100% correct. Now, we make very plain that the tools we built are not legal advice. We've obviously got to have safety nets in place, and there is a human in the loop. But human in the loop is there to continually improve the information that's going out to people who might be too intimidated to call a lawyer, or might think that they can't afford one, or might actually not need one. They might just need the clarity of a piece of information that empowers them to pursue the issue on their own.
Or to put it
And
to bed, to decide, this isn't the way I should be spending my time. Which must be a big one. I mean, I feel like in access to justice, especially, triaging people out of bringing a claim or out of taking up your time, if, to be honest, they shouldn't be, is one of the key challenges that both automation and AI technologies can help to address. And it's something that we're seeing more and more of, both in the personal injury space and more broadly in legal aid organizations around the world. The first tool that you launched on Josef Q answers questions about workers' compensation claims. Has it helped Polaris? Has it helped your firm? I mean, what has the impact been? And we had goals when we set out to build it. Has it achieved some of them? I mean, I'm interested. Our audience is interested in hearing about the real world impact of generative AI built to give legal help to the public.
I mean, the short point is it's helped enormously. One of the things that I think you do when you're creating something like this is not necessarily, I mean, some of the result of this is the feel of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the other part of it is that you might measure the outcomes from the finished product. Even building the product helped us learn about the gaps in knowledge that our own staff, that we had, the kinds of questions that lay people might ask. So part of this is about the answers that it delivers, but even the questions that people are putting into WorkMate now enlighten us. We'd written about 250 blogs about personal injury, but we were just guessing about the things that people really cared about. And it turns out that there's a whole host of questions that people have about workers' compensation in Victoria that they're happy to ask WorkMate that we didn't know were knowledge gaps. So, it helps in a variety of ways. Some of that is to better understand our clients, to understand the knowledge gaps that are there, to understand the knowledge gaps that exist within our own team. So it informs how we train our staff, how we engage our clients, the types of pieces of information that we want to give them up front and along the journey of the claim. And the practice of personal injury litigation can be really bruising for clients and for us. We strongly believe that when clients are better engaged and informed, we have a stronger relationship. It makes the process easier for all of us. So WorkMate existing as a tool, both for new and existing clients or never clients, people who simply want to have the information and go on their way, I think it's enormously beneficial. And to your point earlier about, lawyers spending a lot of time, particularly in this space, saying, no, there is no claim, or there is a claim, but there's a personal decision for you to make about whether it's actually worth you going through this. I think it's a hugely valuable resource for people who might be on the fence about whether to pursue a claim or who may not have one, but don't want to wait to speak to someone to get that answer. And so, it's something that has been, it's difficult to describe the multiple ways that it impacts and improves us, our clients, and our relationship with them. And the excitement of that has really led to us thinking about other ways that we can deploy external access to justice tools.
Speaking of which, you have more recently launched your second tool on Josef Q, which is in a different area of your practice, transport accidents. What lessons did you learn from the first shot that you applied to your second go around? Was it easier? Was it harder? I hope it was easier, but tell me if I've got that wrong.
It was much easier, in part because we had a better sense of what the knowledge base should be, and what the likely gaps were going to be in terms of our own knowledge base. So we anticipated a broader range of questions being asked of it. I think improvements to the technology as well helped. So, for instance, seeing the sources of the answers, which some clients are going to want as well. We're trying to cater to a broad range of people. When we talk about lay clients, we're not talking about a limited subsection of people who don't know and don't want to know. They've come to WorkMate or to the TAC guide wanting information. Some of them want more. But from an internal perspective, seeing the sources also helped us to validate the knowledge base. And it allowed us to turn things around much more quickly. Part of that was the excitement of having seen the first one, and I underestimated how much interest WorkMate would get in the legal community, and insurers, people from TAC, other lawyers were saying, when can we have it? So we built this as a product for lay clients, not anticipating that this would also be of huge interest and value to people within the legal community. And some of that's a byproduct of the fact that the law marches pretty slowly in terms of the adaptation of technology sometimes. So advances like this are particularly exciting in a community which is still coming to grips with the application of technology. You can make a bigger splash.
And they've got you to thank for leading from the front. I mean that. I think that I was reading the other day that there are 3 stages of accepting the truth of something new. And that first stage is denial, and then that second stage is resistance, and that third stage is acceptance. But unless someone is willing to put themselves out there to show people what is possible, well, then we get stuck in denial, or even if we get past denial, we get stuck in resistance. But there's no way we're ever going to get to acceptance. And I genuinely believe that we need people in the industry willing to push those boundaries so that we can move through those phases towards a world in which we just accept as true that some of these new technologies can help us to deliver better access to justice, to deliver more legal services to more people. And it's a testament, seriously, to Polaris, to you, that you're helping us to get there. One last question for you. You said earlier that your vision for client-centric legal services was and is a human one. Where being a human is at the heart of being a good lawyer, of being client-centric. Our hope at Josef is always that the technologies we deliver will enable lawyers to be more human, because they're spending less time doing the things that, to be honest, many of them wish they weren't doing. Has that been true for you? Is that part of the work that we're doing together? Because I really hope it is.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I suppose linking with the previous point, we had come from a place where it was recognised that access to justice was essentially access to information. But the traditional model was, we, the law firm, hold on to all this information until you engage with us, until you pay for it. And we are really excited about a legal tech information of commons. That is, that if you want the information, if you want high quality information, it's there and it's available to you. You can go online and get instructions to build a helicopter. That information is available to you.
Doesn't mean you should.
It doesn't mean you should, but it might give you a sense of the scale of the task, or why it costs what it costs. It might mean that you think twice about it. It will help you make an informed decision. And so, having come from that place where information was withheld and siloed and sold, to us, it's really exciting that we can just open up the playing field and say, right, everybody's got access to this information now. And if you are a lawyer, if you're a client of a rival law firm, you can cross-check what your lawyer is saying by going to WorkMate, by going to our website and checking the answer and and seeing whether the advice that's being given to you is correct. Soon after we built one of the earlier bots that we use for TAC, the most common sources of users or inquiries to that bot were folks at other law firms, and some of them were using to build something which we had built. At first, I felt annoyed about that, and then I went through a feeling of being proud about it, because essentially what that means, Tom, is that we aren't going back to a situation where all information is siloed. Other firms will copy that, and that's cool. That's part of the common stock of information that's out there now. So what are you left with? If everybody's got access to this information, well, what you're left with is the person that you trust to guide you through what you now see as a complex process. And so if you are driven by empathy and a want to meet your client where they are and to walk with them and guide them through the legal process, the litigation process to the outcome, then you are much better positioned than the person who can simply recite to you the legislation, because we don't need a human to do that anymore.
I think that's a beautiful note to end this conversation on. A nod towards our shared humanity and the empathy that it takes to help people through what are some of the most difficult moments in their life. Empathy that you and everyone at Polaris I know has in spades. So thank you, Nick, for coming to this conversation, for sharing your experiences. Here's to a future in which that, information commons really is as accessible to everyone who needs legal help as it could possibly be. Thanks for coming, Nick.
Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to having you over to my fireside for another chat soon, Tom.
Looking forward to it. Bye.